Hey, Pair fans. This episode is brought to you by Audible.com. If you like listening to beautiful voices like ours instead of reading words, then head on over to Audible, where you get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/paratruth, where you can choose from over 180,000 titles for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Christian and non-Christian paranormal investigators. They have two different views, and it seems as if neither of them can ever agree on anything. So what happens when a mainstream view of the paranormal crosses paths with the Christian view? Something epic. This is Paratruth Radio.
Hey, Paratruthers! Welcome to a brand new episode of Paratruth Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And while you're listening to the show today, check out our website, paratruthradio.com, where you can learn more about us and what we do. Also, feel free to look into our Patreon account at paratruthradio.com and help us to continue bringing the world fresh, entertaining media each and every week.
And, of course, by contributing, you'll become an executive producer of an upcoming episode of Paratruth Radio and officially become part of the Paratruth family, which, of course, will include special monthly behind-the-scenes access to our production.
Which is pretty awesome.
That it is.
So, everybody, real quick, before we get started, I just wanted to tell you guys that we do love you guys listening to us. We do this for you guys. So we only ask the favor of, if you love us, if you hate us, if you want to share us with your family, please like, share, subscribe on anywhere you listen. Rate us, review us, and you can do that anywhere that you listen as well, just by putting it in the comments, or if you're on iTunes, you have a special forum for that. So I want you guys to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, let's get ready to expose lies!
Now Paratruth presents Robot Zombies with special guest Estrella Eguino.
Tonight we have on Estrella Eguino. She studied literature, journalism, and social sciences, and graduated from Miami-Dade College in Florida, later obtaining various certifications in marketing, philosophy, and art and humanities. Estrella travels extensively and has a passion for exploring and researching transcendent sites and ancient manuscripts. She is the author of tonight's featured book, Robot Zombies, Transhumanism, and the Robotic Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, Estrella Eguino.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say I'm very excited to be on the show. And I'm a recent fan, but very happy to have found you.
Well, thank you. So tonight we wanted to have you on about your book, Robot Zombies. Why don't you tell us a little bit why you started on this book and how involved you got in with it?
Well, what prompted this entire thing was an interview on a radio show during which I heard some of the things that Dr. Roman Yampowski was saying about cybersecurity. And this was going back to, because the book's been in the making for a while. It was hard to maintain with everything that was going on in technology. But this goes back to a radio show maybe in 2008. 2009, and it was, I mean, I am by no means a computer scientist or even highly instructed in that type of advanced or even intermediate technology, but as a curious person and a person who likes to question what lies beyond what we know as the norm, as what we've accepted. Mm-hmm. So I became very curious and started digging up things and contacting through a mutual friend, contacting Roman Yampowski and actually even speaking with him and At one point, even discussing perhaps working together. But oh my gosh, he is so much more in depth and advanced in that type of science that I couldn't. I'm the kind of person that envisions, and from a lot of the works that I've read before, and starting with Eric Van Daniken back when everything started. This is when this quest for what is there. There's so much beyond, and with this book in particular, it just opened my vision to where it could be imaginary for the time being, but where we could be headed, because there's a lot of evidence in present day that point that we are going to that we're leaving the human condition behind, that we're becoming something else. We're becoming, and this is the term transhumanism, we're becoming beyond human. And to give you an example of what I mean by evidence, and it might be something simple, it might go unnoticed, but we've all heard about what is going on with the situation with the bees that pollinate the flowers, and that's how we get our nutrition, our food, and how it's been said that without the bees, that pretty much civilization can't exist as we know it. And you don't see really that kind of urgency of concern. Do you know what I mean? Like we're hearing, folks, this is happening, and everybody goes around still, hey, let's go up to a concert, let's go, which is, it could be a coping mechanism and a massive coping mechanism, but there seems to be a lack of concern. And the reason being is because the human, for lack of a better word, that will be inheriting the earth will not need that. Mm-hmm. It's a mechanical being for now.
Right.
So that's where I began digging into transhumanism, what was going on, where were the messages coming from, and the book is designed for others like myself who are just curious and what is being said through movies, through messages in that we get in massive Hollywood productions, which are very well known to be connected with the release of technology. Mm-hmm. Like whenever there's something new in technology, we're going to see it in the movies first.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so then part of the beginning of the book is a lot of the history, the mythology, which was very, very much fun to get into and start to go back to a starting point. Mm-hmm. Because this is what the research entailed, just trying to find a starting point. How did we get here, and where did it start to develop? And we're in the way the book is presented. We go through the phases of explaining how, yes, we are losing a lot of human labor to machines, and this may not be something that's so terrible. It opens the doors for humans to improve, to learn, prepare for different opportunities that we don't even know that exist because we're not there yet. So while there is an exchange, and I do have to tell you guys that this book and researching this book changed me quite a bit. And I go back now and I read through it, and whereas I mention a lot of things, because with technology you're all over the board. You have it developing in the military, you have it developing in medicine, in science, across construction, every field, you name it, and it's there. It's something that we're becoming more and more used to. And at that point, I saw it as I saw many negatives to it because, well, it's kind of weird having all our information out there, and the reason why I say it's changed me, it's because it kind of put me in a broader perspective of where the new human is developing into. I'm much more focused in that respect right now, and in the philosophical part that's touched on the book.
Right. Well, now let's talk a little bit about the origin of robots. The idea of artificial intelligence is probably most well established in the Terminator movies, but robots obviously predate the film and most of Hollywood. So in your research, where and how did the idea of robots actually originate?
Well, in prehistoric, if we're going to go back to dating in mythology, one of the tales that comes to mind, like right off the bat, was the tale of Icarus and his father. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember Icarus' father's name, but this is in mythology. We don't even know if it exists, but it sounds like a mechanical being. When Icarus' father is the person who is charged with designing the labyrinth for the Minotaur. And apparently the Minotaur could be some kind of monster. It was a monster, but the point is that the only one who knew the design was Icarus's father. I can't remember his name. And they were jailed in a tower, and in the tower he was able to build. So he was, from what you gather while you're reading this, it's like he could have been a mythological engineer, an engineer of the time. It's just that the tale has deteriorated throughout, and now when we hear about the story, it just says, oh yeah, Icarus who tried to fly to the sun, but that was a sort of a flying machine, what they described. Mm-hmm. And there was also a description of a guardian robot, almost giant robot, guarding the Isle of Crete, and in mythology. And the description given is robotic. So the idea of having either a sentry or maybe someone to do the labor that man doesn't want to do, like the servant to man, that idea has been it goes so far back in time that it's hard to attribute it to a specific person, but in mythology you find it, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with robotics, nowadays medical technology is just leaping heaps and bounds. Do you think that somewhere down the line that humanity and robotics are going to merge somehow, some kind of like some type of cyborg type person or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that's where we're headed. That's the goal of transhumanism, to merge mind and machine. Yes, that's where we're headed. And for example, in medicine, you brought up the field of medicine. There's and I believe now this is very much commercialized. There's a robot machine that the surgeons use that's called the Da Vinci, and it has 3 arms. This is like so weird to see how a person with 2 arms can manipulate for major surgeries 3 arms, but yeah. It just happens, and it seems to be amazing. And this is one of the advances where technology has stepped into medicine and has improved our present condition. But at the same time, there's no doubt. Excuse me. At the same time, there's no doubt in my mind that we are merging. That we are already the studies are centering around locating where in our brain we have our memory stores. and being able to download it. And you see this with the tests that they're running in Google with Google Dreams. Does Google Dream in sheep? Does Google Dream electric sheep? Something, I forget what the name of the article was, which was last year. And so we're already playing with the field of being able to locate where our memories are and being able to download these perhaps into a machine. As a matter of fact, mainstream science, Professor Nick Bostrom already has said that this is what we already are anyway, that we're living in a hologram, in a computer program.
I have heard that, yeah.
And so it's not really very far-fetched if we're headed in that direction, that we at some point will be able to download our memories into a machine and create some sort of personality, and that's already an artificial personality, and then go ahead and combine that with a body, mechanical body. And some companies have already, in Japan in particular, have advanced dramatically in this field, and they've been able to reproduce very human-like cyborgs. So we're already heading in this direction. We're not going to switch gears. I think that definitely the unity of mind and machine is coming. That's the goal of transhumanism.
Right.
Well, now let's stay on the topic of transhumanism for a moment. But conspiracy theorists often claim that the government, or more so, I guess, military, is currently working on ways to enhance human intellectual, physical, and psychological capabilities through a number of different sources. Have you, in your research, found any definitive proof of such concepts having been completed successfully, for like war, for example?
Well, this is one of the things that I've revisited, because the opportunity definitely is there. And we're now living, these last 6 months have been kind of chaotic in information has been chaotic, let's say. And many of these sources are being disclaimed, so or debunked or by mainstream. So there's a fine line of what is accepted, what can be pushed a little bit further. But military is the number one consumer of technology. Military is usually pretty much the one that puts out like a bid or a contract looking for a specific thing, and that's where you have all these other companies that make a bid for it, and so definitely they are the number one consumer in technology. And my own personal view is that whatever we think we know about what is going on behind the public knowledge, and there's always something going on behind the public knowledge. We have to at least agree on that.
Yeah,
right.
I know that I've been called a conspiracy theorist, and it makes me laugh because I'm just curious. All I want to do is know. I just want to dig in, find out, and so it makes me laugh. But it's okay. It's all right. I just continue with my process, and I'm very pleased with the kind of information I come across. Sometimes I rethink certain ideas. Other times they're confirmed. But definitely, speaking of the military, being the number one consumer, that tells you right there that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know.
Right.
And we can certainly speculate across the board on everything. There isn't one single topic that we couldn't just go in, touch, and speculate, oh, did it really happen? Did it really happen like this? And unfortunately, what the government does is they kind of encourage it. Instead of coming right out and saying, no, this is like this, like this, like this. No, they don't say, or they'll say something, so there's definitely something going on that is not easy for us to know about. It's not accessible to the public, and Could it be used for the wrong reasons to start wars? Absolutely, absolutely. There's a video on YouTube that I don't know if you've seen. It was very popular for a while, and it had this figure that was reflecting its environment, and but it looked like a figure, it looked like a human who was covered perhaps in some sort of material, or it was taken on a military field on
Okay.
I think it looked like a soldier that was hopping over an enemy tank that didn't see him because he was disguised. So is it possible to have that kind of material? I am of the opinion that if you can imagine it, you can create it. You can try and figure out how to put it together. And in the use of military weaponry, there's a lot of money that went into. They have a huge budget. The U.S. government always had a huge budget for military, and I mean, you kind of put yourself in their place. What would you do if you had all this money and you could investigate? Wouldn't you?
Right. So one thing that comes to mind about this, since we're talking about military application, one thing that I've thought about since scheduling you for this interview is, humanity is so afraid of our own mortality and our own, I guess, death, I guess you could say. Why do you think that we are so afraid of death? Instead of saying, hey, this is our fate, why are we trying to prolong it or even make ourselves, in a sense, immortal?
That's a very interesting question, but it seems to be the quest of humans from the day they recognize that there is some sort of finality to the lives, to our lives. I believe it's because we're in a way programmed from birth to think of a finality, in our personalities are part of our what makes up our beings, personalities, the ego. You can get a little bit into the psychology of it there, but it identifies very strongly with the material. And one of the things that I see as, in a way, heading in this direction psychologically, this preying upon this idea that most people want to live forever, or most people want to live a very, very long life, or don't want to die. We are afraid of dying. And in my opinion, what I believe is that we're afraid of dying because we don't know, we don't understand what's coming. Once you do, or once you understand it to a degree that it satisfies you, you're fine. You're no longer afraid of death. And but for the most part, mankind, humans, are not at a level of conscience where they can examine and analyze what it means to live, what they learn, what has been learned. Why are we learning? Why is life the way it is? Once you contemplate these things and you start to, in a way, improve upon your personal growth in a threefold manner, and that's very similar to many spiritual basic teachings of the three, of the Trinity, of the mind, the mind and the emotions, I guess, is in the sphere of the soul, and then the psyche and the spirit, which more and more, even in scientific fields, is being recognized. I have had the opportunity to speak with local therapists in Miami for personal, just like I said, sometimes curiosity, because want to find out a little more. What are the most recent modes of treatment that they see in psychoanalysis, for example? And it all goes back to reaching out for a center, a whole, a spirit. And that's interesting, because I believe that as we become more accustomed that what we believe, that we create our reality, we create our own hellish inferno. We do. We still don't understand how to manipulate our beings, how to understand our own bodies, let's say, our own power. And we're afraid because we're programmed. It's been too fast. Progress has been too fast for mankind.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying absolutely. I mean, we've been moving faster than I think we are meant to in regards to technology.
Exactly. Yes. And even right now, it's moving in leaps and bounds. It's almost difficult to catch up with. When I was getting ready to finish the book, there was something new coming up, some new technology. One of the last things that I caught up with, and which I absolutely loved, was seeing all these headlines that computer had been asked what it would do, what artificial intelligence would do to humanity, and it said that it would put it in a zoo exhibit. And I don't know if you recall that, but it made headlines. And when you get into the nitty gritty of what they actually did was they fed the works of Philip K. Dick, the sci-fi writer, into this computer and created a personality. And from that personality, it was asked this question, and it automatically went into the data bank of information that it had from one of the novels, and where it says that, and it spit it out. So all of a sudden, this is on a headline everywhere, and people, there's a lot of people out there who will tell you today, yes, I'm afraid of where we're headed with technology, because if machines take over, they're going to put us in a zoo exhibit. And you'll be surprised how many people are out there who may very well believe that headline the way that it was written. But speaking of immortality, Ray Kurzweil, who has been a huge pioneer in technology and the applications of technology, and an inventor, he has declared a certain interest in bringing back, perhaps. I mean, he seems to, he didn't come right out and say it, but he seems to have an intention of recreating his father's personality, his father who passed away, because he's kept all of his father's works, all of his notebooks, and the reason is because he's looking to be able to maybe do something like that as an example, or as one of these possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have time for, I think, one more question here, but one of the terms that you use within the book is the term zombie. And in fact, the term is actually shown right on the front cover. Mm-hmm. But the word zombie is often associated with the undead. So in regards to your book, what context are you actually using the word zombie?
Well, I know exactly that. I kind of had a lot of fun writing that chapter, Zombies and the Living Dead. I imply, or what I meant to do with that chapter is come out and say that you don't necessarily need to be a robot to behave as an automaton who will respond to everything the way that a manipulator would want you to behave. You don't need to be a robot. We don't need to have a robot as a server. We, in many cases, are those servants, those masses that just obey. And that's why I used it. And then I kind of described some illnesses and some things that kind of caused the and by no means am I making fun of it or anything. I'm just specifying, like, these things are real, and we may have some people out there who think, who just are told what to think and they repeat it, and that's how zombies is used there.
Okay. I see what you're saying. It's very similar to, I mean, we see this all the time on the internet, little memes about people watching TV and all the subliminal messaging, or people sitting on their cell phone, not even looking around the world.
I was going to say, just look at
focused on their phones,
youth today.
So yeah, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah, that's right. It happens all the time. I see it all the time. Sometimes I've been in situations where I've snapped a picture because there's 6 people all around, and all 6 of them are buried in a little smartphone.
Now, sadly, I am guilty of it, just like everybody else. I've been trying to limit myself lately because it's like, this is not my life. I don't want to be attached to this all the time. So,
don't get me wrong. Me too. I'm guilty as could be. I'm the one there putting the picture on Facebook. So,
Well, Estrella,
I can't get away from it. We can't get away from it.
No, agreed.
It's something that we're living with. We have to learn to live with. We have to learn to harness the energy that all this provides.
Yeah.
Have you, by the way, seen the movie Doctor Strange?
I have not seen it yet. No.
I highly recommend it.
Okay. I've been planning to see it. I just haven't had the time to do so yet.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. I saw it back to back as the compulsive things that I do, and because it literally on different levels it was the proverbial blow your mind kind of movie, because there's a lot of craft messages, the messages that are subliminal that are in that movie. It's extremely interesting. I'm sure that once you see it, you get a show out of that for sure.
All right, Estrella. Well, it is time to let you go, so I want to give you the chance to tell everybody where they can find you, find the books, and any upcoming projects that you have going on.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Eric and Justin. It has definitely been a pleasure speaking with you. And the book Robot Zombies can be found on Barnes & Noble. It's in Barnes & Noble and all stores. It's on Amazon. If they don't have it on the shelves, they can order it for you, and that's no problem. And it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle, Nook, I believe, and I can be reached. The best way, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, is probably email, which is my name, Estrella Eguino, ESTRELLAEGUINO @yahoo.com. I'm still very loyal to Yahoo from way back in the day, and I have my business emails, but this is the one that I'm drawn to the most, so that's the one that I read the most. And I'm on Facebook and social media.
All right.
If anybody in the audience wants to get a hold of me, and I'll be more than happy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and taking time out of your night. So we will let you go, and hopefully maybe we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you so very much. I look forward to it.
Have a good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, folks. That was Estrella Eguino. I need to work on my Spanish, apparently, because I completely butchered that. So, anyways, that was Robot Zombies, Transhumanism, and the Robot Revolution. Stay tuned after Eric's Random Fact of the Day for our post-interview segment.
Now, Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
Did you know that a poll conducted in 2013 found that 1 in 10 Brits think Australia is further from the UK than the moon? According to digitalspy.com, the poll was conducted by a company called Linked
as part of their deep space promotional campaign, which will give a customer the chance to go to space. However, the moon is actually 384,000 kilometers, or 238,000 miles, away, which is equivalent to 25 one-way trips from the UK to Australia.
This was Eric's random fact of the day.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we just let go Estrella Eguino, author of Robot Zombies, Transhumanism, and the Robot Revolution. Interesting topic, something that's kind of going on nowadays because, as she had said just before we had left her, people are so attached to their phones nowadays that, really the next step is integrating technology into the human body. Where do you think this is going to lead us? Because, we talked a lot about, off air, how about, AI is becoming so advanced right now, and robotics is also going that same direction. As far as humans are concerned, where do you think this is bringing us? Do you think it's something that is unnatural or something we should be avoiding?
That's a really good question. It's interesting because we have a lot of a Christian fan base, for example, might come out and say, hey, humans are supposed to be human, so therefore adding any type of these artificial intelligence to ourselves physically would be to undo God's original work and to make something of your own. And there's already issues with people getting plastic surgery or certain, muscular enhancements and things like that. And not that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. Obviously do what you want to do, but there are some people out there who think that it goes against God's original plan for ourselves or for yourself. So I think there's a certain point where there's a line, and that line can be crossed. And it could be a bad thing. It could be very negative. But at the same time, I think artificial intelligence is, like in our modern day, perfectly fine. Nowadays we have the cell phones, which allow us to access pretty much anything at any time, anywhere. It allows us to navigate better, which is something we didn't have. 100 years ago, our navigation was pretty crappy, and at one point we had to navigate by the stars. So having things like maps or, Google Maps, etc., is kind of a nice thing. But the question is, where's the line drawn? It's one thing having a artificial intelligence that is of external use, as opposed to programming something or putting a computer chip into someone's brain or elsewhere to kind of configure all these things on your own. So, it's one of those balancing acts. It's hard to say. We got to remember that God did destroy the earth at one point for basically when the human race decided to go their own route and create the Nephilim, the half human, half demonic hybrid. And so how is that much different then than today if we're going to start going to a half human, half robotic hybrid? It's kind of similar, so, I can't say, but.
Well, it's, like with the, what you were saying about Christians being upset about plastic surgery and whatnot. A lot of people that follow a Christian faith feel that God does not make mistakes. So if you're trying to fix mistakes in yourself, and this actually, I've heard this from people that even goes as far to say as a physical abnormality. For example, somebody has a hole in their heart when they're born, and then they need a heart transplant or whatever. There are some that would believe that child was supposed to die. They were meant to be alive for so long and die, and that was the whole point of it. So it's hard to interpret how robotics would come into play here, because in a sense, we are probably going into the route of artificial organs.
Right.
to kind of prolong our lives.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And here's the thing, like, there are those extremists who believe that anything, such as the little child with the hole in their heart, to try to save that child would be against God's wishes. There are many extremists who would say that. But I disagree, and there's a lot of Christians who think medication is wrong and you shouldn't have medication. But again, I disagree. In fact, I think biblically speaking, medication was important even back in biblical times, and God was aware of that. And he created all things. He knows what's going to be created, and he doesn't necessarily agree with everything. But the one thing that he is very interested in is preserving human life, saving people. The question is, at what point are we saving people? And at what point are we trying just to advance ourselves for selfish reasons?
Right.
People with missing limbs, they have artificial limbs. A friend of mine, he's missing an arm. He's got an artificial arm that moves when he thinks it, and he tried, the fingers move and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that.
So it's
that
basically robotics controlling.
Right. It's not, and in that case, it's not really an enhancement. It's a replacement. And it's not the best replacement, obviously, from what God created, but it's something that helps the person. Now, if we're talking about creating something that'll add on muscular structure, make you stronger, faster, there's supposedly some type of artificial intelligence that is being created for military use to help soldiers to go 3-4 days without sleep whatsoever. And they're constantly able to move, no food, no water, anything like that. Things like that could start to lead to almost godly properties. Because at what point do people start to say, oh, this person isn't human. They must be a god. Let's worship this person. And that, of course, is where the line begins to draw out slowly.
Well, I don't think that in this day and age, I'm not so sure that people would start worshiping other people because they're living longer because they're godlike. But in America,
it might be not. But we're talking about third world countries, places who don't know God, people who don't know what we know, are very well taken to that kind of thing.
That's a good possibility. One thing that scares me about it, which we actually talked about this a week or two ago, is if humanity is going the way that we're thinking now, where we're almost living forever, or putting our mind into a computer world so we don't die, so that our mind is always there, or what people would consider a soul nowadays is our mind. I honestly believe if we lived for a very extended period of time, if we lived forever, or if we were to put ourselves into some type of virtual world, just our minds, I think we would go insane, literally insane, because even though we are only using 10% of our brain capacity, we would be unlocking that if we were, for example, to be putting ourselves in a virtual reality world. We would kind of be unlocking that, and I think we would go so nuts that we would want to die. Be like, please pull the plug, delete this program, whatever.
Yeah. And obviously something like that is very science fiction, like way out there in regards to science fiction.
It is science fiction, but it is being talked about.
But it's being talked about, but I don't think it's anything plausible anytime soon whatsoever.
Well, no.
They have to fully now that's the issue. That's where science and religion start to part ways as well, because, science says that, hey, we can take someone's ideas and thoughts and whatnot, so your so-called soul or your memory, and place it into this artificial intelligence where you can last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But then religion says, well, no, the source of all that we know and what we do is based on the soul. Without the soul or the spirit, you cease to exist. And the scripture says that to be apart from the body is to be in the presence of God, simply meaning that all mankind is tethered to the Lord. So the moment we die, boom, everything's gone and it's up in heaven, and whatever God does from there, God does. So that's something that I think is just really out there, because you got to find out the exact source, and how do you control that source? Even if, and of course, this is something that's going to be like in the box type of thing. If they were capable of doing that, or claimed that they were capable of doing that, only a few people will know about it, will know the truth. Because there's plenty of people out there who want to be remembered for something of such tremendous, let's face it, greatness, because that's pretty crazy and great if you're capable of doing that. But the thing is, I think many people, such as myself, if someone were to come out and say, hey, we did it and look, I'd question if whether or not it's real. How do I know that's really somebody's mind? How do we not know it's just artificial intelligence?
Right.
There's nothing real about it. It's nothing human about it. So, it's hard to say.
That's kind of where my point is a lot of people believe the soul is in the mind, but there are even quantum, I know we keep going back to this, but there are quantum scientists that are saying, call it what you will, but once we leave our body, we go to another plane of existence, an alternate reality, if you will, whatever you want to call it. And if that's the case, and we're putting our mind into a virtual reality world, then what happens there? Like, does the brain even matter? Which obviously in my opinion, I don't believe that the brain matters. I believe the soul, the spirit, whatever energy you want to call it, we are energy. We are not physical beings.
Right.
So that's why I think we would go insane, because we are separated from our spirit, soul, energy, because now the brain is separated from that. So I think...
Well, here's the other thing, too, to think about. And this is a scientific fact. At least everyone should know this. But when the heart stops, if you're pronounced dead for so long and you happen to come back to life after so many minutes, there's a possibility of brain damage if you're without oxygen for so long. If that's the case, then how is it conceivably possible that you're able to take away oxygen in the breath of life and allow the brain to continue to exist without any type of brain damage and still be the same person it once was when it was alive?
That's
it's
what
like
I'm
it just
saying.
doesn't make any sense.
Right. So I think we kind of agree there that it would be, I honestly believe it would not be a good thing to be doing this. So, I'm honestly glad that we were able to have Estrella on for this, because it's one of those things that is going on now. Like, we're not seeing this just in the future. It's happening now. Any final thoughts or words for our listeners about, like, just in general for transhumanism? Like, if people are thinking about, hey, I want to put my mind into a computer, or let's chop my arms off to put robotic ones on or something. I mean, because there are going to be people at some point that want to do that.
Look, the fact is, and despite what anyone believes, the fact is there's a time and a place for death, and eventually it's going to catch up to you. So whether you want to put your mind into some, contraption to live forever, guess what? Technology eventually dies, runs out of power, and poof, eventually you're going to die, period. Regarding wanting to...
basically becoming cyborg, I guess, is what I was going for.
Right? Okay, and so regarding becoming a cyborg, like, there's absolutely nothing, I believe, that will ever overpower or be more powerful than what God originally created and designed. Anything created by man is destined to fail, period. And yeah, I know there's plenty of you out there listening right now who disagree with me. That's fine. I'm telling you what I personally believe, and what I believe is fact, because we've seen the moth destroy, and we've seen rust destroy, and we've seen, power fail. It's just anything created by man doesn't seem to exist. We see it on a day-to-day basis. We walk past it every single day. Buildings crumble, streets get torn up, cars fall apart. It's obviously, it makes sense. Anything man makes ends up relatively dead. But the things that God creates seem to last and last and last. And of course, you might say, oh, but mankind eventually dies. That's true, but God created it that way. So, that's where I stand on there. And I just have to say, if you guys, anyone out there wants something like that, some type of cyborgism type thing to go on with your body, I mean, just remember it's not the way you were meant to be created. And there are much more better and more powerful things you could be doing with your time than simply trying to enhance your own body.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with your previous statement with if it's something that's helping you, then yes, I think that is a reason to get a robotic arm because you lost one in a tragic accident or your heart is failing. If for whatever reason we're finally able to come up with a artificial heart that actually works properly, then get that heart to elongate your life long enough to learn the lessons you need to learn and then move on from this world.
Right.
So I think we're both in agreement there because honestly, I don't think I think there's a natural order. Disturbing that natural order is going to cause a lot of problems, maybe even bring us into the apocalypse, regardless of whatever apocalypse you believe in, the biblical, the robotic, the zombie, whatever it is. I think we will end up in that point if we start messing with the natural order.
All right, folks, you are listening to Paratruth Radio. We're talking about robotics in the future. We will be right back after Justin's Paranormal Headlines.
And now, Paratruth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
How's it going, Paratruthers? Justin here with your Paranormal Headlines, and these headlines are from abcnews.go.com/weird. Naked man rescued from California sandwich shop after fall. Rescue workers had to remove part of a wall to pull a naked man out of a sandwich shop where he spent the night trapped inside a narrow passage. San Francisco television station Cron TV reported that a construction crew arriving at a Napa job site Tuesday heard faint calls for help coming from the closed shop. Authorities say it appears the man fell into the shaft from the roof of the building. A construction worker told the television station the man said he was looking for a wishing well when he became trapped. Workers removed a portion of the shop's front wall to rescue the man. He was not identified and taken to a hospital for treatment. This has been Justin with your Paranormal Headlines.
This was a segment of Paratruth Radio's Paranormal Headlines.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to Paratruth Radio. My name is Eric.
And I am Justin. I'm just going to keep mixing it up every week just to make you feel uncomfortable.
You just keep doing that. Oh, man. And we have been talking about robotics. Yeah. That kind of stuff, guys. Artificial intelligence.
We've been talking about robot zombies.
We've been talking about artificial intelligence, and I think a few really strong points and good points have come up here or during the episode, both when we had Estrella on, and even now in our post-interview segment. I think some really strong points have come up, and I think that when it comes down to it, we need to really focus on the here and now and not worry so much about the future, because I think so much of our attention is going towards the future. We're losing grasp of what we have now. And that's not just the items that we have, but the people, the technology, all that stuff that we have now that we can use to better ourselves and our lives in a non-destructive way. I think exists now. And it's a problem because, we often hear don't live in your past because it can't be changed. Well, don't live in your future either, because you can't change that unless you focus on the now, the present.
Right. Live in the present. Yep.
Worry about everything happening now. That's all I have to say about that.
I want to say, too, is there's so many people concentrating on death. Why concentrate on that? Concentrate on living your life the best that you can now, because you're not, this is it, man. This is it.
Yeah. Don't fear the Reaper.
A lot of great points, guys. I hope that you do the research. I hope you pick up robot zombies, transhumanism, and the robot revolution. A lot of great points in here. And Estrella, basically, I mean, she laid it flat out. We are, I mean, regardless of what happens, we are heading to this future right now. So, nothing that we can really do but embrace what's coming. But I believe Eric made a very valid point. Live in the now. Don't worry about what's happening 5 years from now. I mean, if you want to plan your personal life, great. But don't worry about, your own death. Don't worry about prolonging your life. Just live it the best you can right now. So next week, folks, we are going to be bringing back Scott and Heidi Linden from Talk Supernatural, and we're going to be discussing extraterrestrials. Now, Eric and I have touched on this a very long time ago when we first started the show, but we're going to revisit with Scott and Heidi because it's actually something they've been interested in talking about with us. So until next week, folks, I do want you guys to check out paratruthradio.com. Check out our Patreon account. Make sure you go to fringeradionetwork.com and radioandpodcast.com. Check out all the amazing shows that are going on both of those sites. And just keep staying tuned. If you guys have noticed, we do have a new logo and intro, as Eric introduced last week. And like I said at the beginning, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and write review and rate us. So until next week, folks, where you will find us, same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric. Peace. If you enjoyed this episode of Paratruth Radio and you would like to listen to it again, or are interested in listening to any of our past episodes, then you can find them at Stitcher, Blueberry, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and the Fringe Radio Network.
Or for a one-time fix of all of your Paratruth needs, simply drop in to paratruthradio.com.
And of course, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram for brand new updates on our show every day.
Finally, we love bringing you fresh, entertaining media each and every week, but we can't do it without you. So please check out our Patreon account. Simply go to paratruthradio.com, click on the Patreon logo, and help us to continue bringing you the latest and greatest in paranormal research.